And we are back here on the Choose954 podcast, episode 75, with Hollywood local and our upcoming AAF CreativeZen speaker, Achim Nowak, from his beautiful residence here in Parkside, Hollywood. If you didn't know about Choose954, we started a social movement to cultivate culture and community here in Broward County, where we're both very proud to live in. Keep people to know with a lot of great things going on in an effort to make this a better place to live, not just a better place to vacation, because we live here. The point of the podcast is to connect you with amazing people like him that do important stuff in the community. And you're going to find out a little bit more ahead of Kim's talk coming up this Friday morning at Drastix. But without much further ado, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit at a high level here?
Hi, Evan.
Howdy.
I, like many of us, many careers, I wear many hats. I'm an executive coach. I coach really successful people. And what I love about coaching successful people, they don't want to be more successful. They're looking for more enjoyment, more purpose and stuff like that. I write books. I've written a bunch of books about personal growth and expansion. I'm passionate about Hollywood, especially Parkside. I've been here for 18 years. I'm on the board of the Parkside Civic Association, and it's funny to be in a neighborhood, you know, and anybody who comes to Drastix, by the way, we're on the edge of Parkside, so I can tell you about where to go. But 18 years ago, people would say to me well, when you make enough money, you're going to leave Parkside, right? It was like this was an up-and-coming neighborhood, and now suddenly it's the hot neighborhood, and everybody wants to be here. And I tell you that story because it goes back to, like, how do we define success for ourselves? So some people's narratives were, well, if you're successful here, you're not going to be in Parkside. And now it is, if you're successful, you're going to be in Parkside.
There you go.
So I love all of that redefinition of what that all is.
For those maybe that aren't familiar with where Parkside is, can we give some geographical reference?
Parkside is this tiny little neighborhood between Federal Highway and South 21st, just south of downtown Hollywood. It's a little sliver. It's one of the oldest neighborhoods, and it's graced with this beautiful overgrown street canopy. So it has this very romantic feeling, and you can walk to downtown. Like I can I'm 3 blocks from Drastix. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I guess 1 block from the boulevard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even better.
Absolutely.
And amongst the overwhelmingly generous, thoughtful, and considerate welcoming committee that welcomed me when I moved to downtown Hollywood last year, I've just been met with nothing but good people, good vibes, and fortunately, thought-provoking, inspiring folks like Achim, who's going to share his thought-provoking, inspiring story this Friday morning with us during our monthly Breakfast Extra series called CreativeZen, where we bring in somebody local to share their story, to connect and engage and inspire our creative community one Friday morning a month. So you can find that free event with coffee and a free guided meditation this Friday at Drastix on Tyler Street. And we'll provide some more information, link in the comments and all that. But before you share your story there, we don't want to give it all away. Could you give us just a little context as to who you are and how you got to this point where you're writing books and coaching successful people?
Well, I can tell many stories about my life, but the moment, I remember a moment that really stands out that changed my trajectory. You know, I was still living in Manhattan, this was 20 years ago, and I'm at this little social function, and I'm chatting with this fellow, and, you know, he said, what do you do? And he said, well, I run a temporary staffing agency, and I have an office in Brooklyn, and I have an office in Tampa. And out of my mouth came completely unfiltered. I said, I could never do that. And he looked at me, and he called me out. He said, of course you could.
Wow.
And that moment, you know, I'm eternally grateful. He will not remember me. I realized, you know, the belief systems that weren't serving me. And then got a book deal for my first book. I realized I better build a business around it. I've written a bunch of books since then. But I realized I can run businesses that are creative. I need to adjust my thinking around it. I don't do gigs. You know, I run businesses, and I think of myself as a serial entrepreneur now. But that started with that fellow calling me out and saying, sure, you can do that.
Do you remember who that was?
I don't remember him at all. I wouldn't know his name. I wouldn't know how to find his website.
Well, everything happens for a reason.
Absolutely.
And was that before or after the Tobago experience?
I lived, it was after, I lived for a year in the early 90s in a beautiful remote island, Tobago. And what I love about that experience, I spent 6 weeks in the Arizona desert near Sedona. Any of you who are spiritual, you know that's an energy vortex. You were there recently. And I did some pretty far out stuff. I'm not going to go into all the details now, but one thing that happened, I was definitely doing some vision quests, and I kept seeing an image of a White House on a cliff overlooking the ocean. You know, and a Freudian therapist could say, well, that's just primal, imagery. But,
sure.
But I knew that that was a real place. And in the spirit of entrepreneurship, 6 months later, I lived in a White House on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic in Tobago. Before I had that vision, I didn't even know where Tobago was. So there's a long story about how I got to Tobago. And obviously, a year in Tobago changed my life.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And once again, everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Sedona is a very special,
it's an amazing place,
energy-filled place.
Yeah.
For those that maybe aren't familiar with the books and some of the other stuff you do, could you give some context as to what you do write about, and then also maybe a little bit about your own podcast?
Yeah. The first book I wrote was called Power Speaking: The Art of the Exceptional Public Speaker. And it's funny because I went like, does the world really need another book about public speaking? So you know how we can talk ourselves out of stuff.
Sure.
But I realized immediately I knew what I wanted to say about public speaking. I've been coaching speakers. I went a little deeper, and the second book is called Infectious. It's about,
TV magic.
Yeah, which is about energetic connections, I believe, at the deepest level. I mean, you and I are talking right now, but the deepest connection are about energy, like energy of thought, emotion, all of those things. And then I wrote a book that's, if you put it in a bucket, it would be in the mindfulness space. And I've been meditating for 30 years, doing all this stuff. But sometimes the way we talk about those things, we almost make it sound more complicated than it is, and it's couched in forbidding language. So I wanted to write a book, again, through my lenses, and it's called The Moment. And it's really about what does it mean and look like to be more in the moment. It's very personal. And that's my most recent book, and it's had a wonderful life around the world, and I'm grateful for it.
Amen. And I can see the mindfulness and the benefits of mindfulness resonating off of you, and you definitely have great energy, a very peaceful, positive person.
Yeah.
I've since become a yogi and mindfulness practitioner myself, and now slowly even transitioning into mindfulness advocate. For somebody that might not be familiar with meditating and mindfulness, and maybe think it's woo-woo or something like that, along those lines, what would be advice, suggestion, or some thoughts that you would share with somebody that's looking for a little bit more peace and looking for a little bit more mindfulness, but doesn't know how to go about finding it?
I think a common misconception is that mindfulness means we meditate every morning for 30 minutes. And I advocate for that. It's a wonderful thing, but that's a means to an end. That's a means to more fully being present
Sure.
in every moment of our lives. In my first career, for 12 years, I was a professional theater director and acting coach in a previous lifetime in New York. I love saying this because we just, the Tony Awards were on last night, which were amazing celebration of creativity. But actors really work on having a stronger connection to their senses, and the senses connect us to everything around us. So one way to get out of our heads and be more fully present is to, it's a cliche to say smell the roses, but basically just see, sense, smell more. Give yourself permission to do that, which requires slowing down a little bit. Yes.
I appreciate you sharing that with us. I had a brief moment where I put my mindfulness to use just outside as I parked the car. It was hot. My water bottle fell over to the ground. I was getting flustered, and I literally just went.
Yeah.
And does it solve all problems in life? No, but does it certainly help make the moment that much better and more enjoyable?
Absolutely.
Yes. So we both couldn't advocate and suggest and implore you to instill some breathwork mindfulness practice into your life if you're looking for something like that.
Even if I may just expand on what you just said. Because I identify myself as a serial entrepreneur these days, so I love starting things, I commit to them, but I also believe if something doesn't work out for whatever reason, it's not supposed to be. You know, the older me would have tried to make it happen, push through, so that exhale, take a breath and saying, okay, dear God, or whatever you believe, higher power, universe, sounded good, but that was probably my ego, and I'm not supposed to be doing this. Let it go, move on to something else.
Amen. And about the serial entrepreneurship part and how mindfulness does impact that, I was going a million miles an hour for many years prior to, thankfully, discovering yoga and mindfulness. And I mean, people would say, like, you know, you're burning yourself out, you're burning yourself at both ends of the candle and stuff like that. And I really wasn't thinking about it. I'm like, no, I have to put in the work. I have to, stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, doing stuff to be successful or to show that I'm doing work. And you really don't. And since I've discovered the powers and the practices and the benefits of yoga, meditation, mindfulness, my life's never been better. I've never been in better shape. I've sleep better. I've also learned sleep is pertinent to life. So many things. So that's why now we're putting the Zen and Zen in the event that we have this Friday morning, where he'll be speaking, where we do integrate a free guided meditation. Maybe some people have never meditated before, and that could be their first exposure. So I appreciate you sharing that, and encourage you guys to check out what was the last book?
The Moment.
The Moment. Okay. And if they'd like to find out and learn a little bit more, how about tell us a little bit about the Fourth Act podcast?
It's funny in this period of entrepreneurship, people always say to me, do a podcast, and then I think it's usually probably people assume I'm going to do one on leadership, and I'm a trained actor, so I have a deep voice. But these are people's reasons for doing one, not mine. I ended up doing one because I really wanted to have these conversations, so it's called My Fourth Act. And I'm a former theater director, so in a traditional, well-written play, it has 5 acts, the classic plays. And the 4th act is the act where you've resolved most of the drama in your life, but you're not ready to die yet. So it's this sweet period where amazing things can happen. So I said, let me talk to people who have great 4th acts. And for some people, a 4th act is there's something you've done all your life, and you're ready to go even deeper with that. And for other people, there's something that you never thought you would do, but you're no longer doing it for money, for attention, for recognition. You're just going there. So I've been blessed to talk to just amazing people. I mean, give an example. The episode I'm releasing this week is by a woman who has been on my social radar for the last 10 years. She's a really well-known leadership blogger. African-American physician. Her name is Martina McGowan. She's 70 years old, and out of nowhere she decided to write a book of poetry called I Am the Rage. And she says, I'm an introvert, but this is a way for me to express my rage. And the book published last year got lots of recognition. The Black Caucus of the American Library Association just picked it as the best poetry book of the year.
Wow!
And so this is 4th act stuff. In how I'm using her as an example for all of us. She said, "I never thought I would write poetry. I was a leadership blogger, but I took a writing class, and in the writing class, poetry is what came out. And somebody said, 'Read what you wrote, Martina.' And she said, 'I read it.' And everybody said, 'You have to do more of that.' And what I love about this story in my own life, I like to joke, I don't do anything alone. I am in mastermind groups. I hang out with other entrepreneurs. I launched my first business by being in a business think tank in Manhattan for a year. So her story is a classic one about how we move forward into new terrain.
Amen. And it really shows from the episodes I've listened to that everybody goes through life. Everybody's a human being just like everybody else is a human being. There's highs, there's lows, and then you bounce back, and hopefully there's more highs than there are lows.
Yeah.
But we all we all deal with our own shit the way that we deal with it. I remember the first time that we met for coffee. I forget her name, but
Deborah Alshan Cooper.
Yes. And that was a fascinating story.
Yeah.
How she used to be Liv Taylor's.
Deborah Alshan Cooper,
Please.
Lives half the time in Aventura, half the time in New York. I met her at a social function in Miami. I immediately knew I wanted to have her on my podcast. But when she was 26 years old, by pure accident or serendipity, she became Elizabeth Taylor's spokesperson in the middle of the AIDS situation, and it of course changed her life. So I wanted to talk to her. How did that happen? I want to alert you to one more episode.
Please.
That's I think relevant to CreativeZen.
Please.
2 weeks ago, I released a conversation with a fellow named Philip Smith. Philip is one of the most probably acclaimed visual artists in Miami. He has stuff he had stuff in the Biennale in the Whitney in Beijing.
Wow.
He's in a permanent connection of the Perez Museum, Whitney, Dallas Museum of Art. But he had a really unorthodox childhood with a wild, creative father. So talking, and for a while he was the managing editor of GQ magazine in New York. I mean, he has this incredible career. And so we talked about, as an artist who is successful, makes good money off his art.
Sure.
How do you go deeper with your art or with your attention in the art in the middle of all the social turmoil in the world? So he's not going to something new, but he's investigating as a successful artist. He's been doing this for a while. Where do I go from here? So those are really interesting questions for all of us, right?
Where do we go from here?
Well, I think what I've learned from myself is that I can't make a difference everywhere. So I have to be clear about where I can make a difference. Where I play has to also energize me and not burn me out. When Philip Smith and I talked, what he said, he talked about the intention behind his work. He spent 30 years in a dojo in Japan, training in that culture. But he said, I can make a difference every day when I go to the supermarket and the way I interact with people. Every moment, to the title of my book, I have a chance to make a difference. In my case, I choose to play in Hollywood because I love the city. I used to serve on the Hollywood Historical Society board. I know the Parkside Civic Association board. So I pick playgrounds where I feel like I can make a difference. And when it comes to Parkside Civic Association, also I make a better difference if I like the people I play with. And so my playmates in Parkside Civic, we're very cool. We have a lot of fun. We're very active.
You're making an impact.
Yeah, and we make an impact.
Amen. Yeah. And if you haven't checked out the new website,
several websites. So Parkside Civic Association website is, it's, if you Google Parkside Hollywood, it's the first thing that shows up. So we're highly ranked. It's parksidehwd.com. It's really cool. It gives you a sense of what a marvelous neighborhood this is. And if you want to check out the different playgrounds where I personally play, there's a website. It's my name, achimnowak.com. And you can find out about the podcast, my books, and all of that stuff.
Amen. I was referring to the great job that you guys have done on the Parkside website, and I will actually give you a little extra kudos and credit.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know all of the hidden gems that are here in Hollywood. And you guys did a great job, not just highlighting some of the local businesses or restaurants, but some of the public art, the Downtown Hollywood Mural Project. The fact that we have Indonesian restaurants and Thai, and so much and so on and so forth. So appreciate the work that you guys do as literally passionate members of the community that want to inform, connect, and engage your neighbors, your fellow community members, and make this a better place to live And we had a great podcast episode you helped set up with Ken Parkside
Ken Crawford.
Yes. Yeah. So you can find out more. Maybe this is something in your third or fourth act that you would want to get involved with. Civic, community-driven, sometimes nonprofit, sometimes they're not nonprofit organizations that literally do make an impact in the community, and ultimately that's what fills both of our cups, is to support the community. And it really, I really do want to say, really does make a difference. I never felt, it is what it is, I never felt this sense of community in Fort Lauderdale. It was too siloed. There's so many transient people there. It's fast moving. It's always changing. I love the pace here. It's definitely a slower way of life here. There is some change, there is some development happening. Obviously, I'm all for the growth of the city, but Hollywood really cares. They really do a great job. There was 2 amazing festivals this weekend at the Arts Park and at the beach. Yeah. Well, that you can walk to. Yeah. And obviously, the sun's shining 240 days of the year, so all those good things. So I really do appreciate not just everything you do personally and professionally, but even on your quote unquote volunteer time with the Civic Association, and even coming and supporting CreativeZen as an attendee.
And what I just want to add,
please,
what I love about the event this Friday,
yes,
it's a confluence of many things, because I also love restaurateurs like Victor Choi and Gina Spencer and Drastix. Their food is amazing. It's reasonably priced. They are true champions of the arts.
Amen.
They normally don't roll out of bed at 8:30 in the morning, so they open their restaurant just for us. So the fact that we get to have a conversation in an intimate space in downtown Hollywood, surrounded by arts, and it was hosted by people who genuinely champion the arts. That's sort of everything that's really good about Hollywood.
Amen. And after I leave here, I'm going to go record a podcast with Victor, and he'll tell us more. But in case you don't get to catch that episode, not only has Victor and Gina had art, showcase artists in the restaurant, have art not only on the walls, but they've actually taken the liberty of utilizing the tabletops as canvases that they've sourced local artists, most of them actually local to Hollywood, to place their artwork on these tabletops throughout the restaurant, which the artists, a lot of them emerging, a lot of them relatively new artists. It means the world to them. Edie Pollack, Kim, so many artists that are so proud and so thankful of this opportunity of a local restaurant to give them that place to showcase, as well as during the art walk every third Saturday night of the month when we lead a free tour at 7 to 9 o'clock of the Downtown Hollywood Art Walk. Victor and Gina are nice enough to open a corner of the restaurant and a whole wall for a local artist to display and sell their work.
And free taste of the food.
Yes, yes.
I always show up for free food. I just want to make that point.
Amen. And and just another note on Drastix. I think they're up to 10 sauces, and there's like 10 different skewer options. So you literally can make 100 different combinations, if my math serves me correctly, between the different skewers, steak, chicken, fish, and then they're always adding new special stuff to the menu. They had oxtail recently, which is always nice to find here in South Florida. So that's where we're going to have this event, where he's going to share his story this Friday morning in downtown Hollywood off of Tyler Street. The doors open at 8:30. There's some mixing and mingling, free coffee, networking. Talk starts at 9. We're out of there by 10. It's a really great event. It served as my initial aha moment, where I gained the inspiration to begin going down this path of community building and creative entrepreneurism, which is why I like to pay it back and pay it forward and continue hosting it for free. We just celebrated 4 years, God bless. So we really appreciate you taking the time out to come join us on Friday morning. If they want to connect with you further, you mentioned the website. How about social medias or other way, email address or any other way for someone to get in touch with you?
I'm in the usual places, so you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook. My books are available on Amazon. And if you want to reach out to me, send me an email. You can find all that on the website.
Okay. And are you available for additional coaching clients, consulting gigs, speaking opportunities? Are you booked full at the moment? Or
I'm open to people calling me.
Okay.
I'm somebody who doesn't. I don't ever chase clients.
Sure.
I don't pursue clients. I believe that the right clients show up. You know, I'm blessed to have a pipeline, so the phone keeps ringing.
Amen.
So I trust the organic process.
Love it. And he really is a genuine, authentic human being, an individual. Grateful for your support. I really appreciate your participation on the podcast this Friday morning. If you guys have any questions, you feel free to reach out to me. I'm an open book. Evan at Choose954.com. You can find us on all the social medias at Choose954. And the last question that I'd like to ask, you've already shed a lot of light on it, but why do you choose the 954?
I want to distinguish between Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood, which you already did. You know, my work has taken me all over the world. I lived in Manhattan for 20 years. I've been in glitzy places. And what I love about Hollywood is it's still a little funky. You know, it's not precious. It's a 1950s beach town growing up. And it needs to grow up some, but we don't want to lose too much of the funky edge, which is why I came here. So it's the antithesis to my business life, which is flying around and being fancy hotels and all this stuff.
Very well put. You can be yourself.
Yeah.
You can be successful in Parkside and in Hollywood. I just can't say enough. I'll give you guys just some quick updates as we wrap up here. God bless the City of Hollywood, the Community Redevelopment Agency, City Commissioner Carol Shuham, Mayor Josh Levy, a nonprofit that I started 5 years ago that a lot of you guys have been following, has finally come to fruition here in Broward County with support from the City of Hollywood, the Thousand Mermaids Artificial Reef Project. We finally secured funding to construct and now deploy these reefs off the coast of Hollywood Beach. We just placed them this weekend on display to the public. You can find them easily at Arts Park on the Circle in downtown Hollywood, right off of Hollywood Boulevard. You can also find them right at Margaritaville, right in front of the band shell, Driftwood Community Center, and we're actually going to add some additional locations so people can see these structures
really cool.
before we put them in the ocean, using art as an awareness tool to let people know about the problems that are plaguing our coral reefs. And these artificial reefs are engineered with a lot of benefits to provide habitat for fish, coral restoration research. It's going to be a huge boost for ecotourism, people coming to stay here, dive, and work on these reefs and monitor these reefs and study these reefs. It's a really great thing, so we really appreciate the City of Hollywood there. We're still leading free tours, as I mentioned, of the Downtown Hollywood Art Walk every third Saturday night of the month. I lead a tour of more of the art walk, the studios, the artisan market, the galleries at 7 and 9 o'clock. My dear friend Joe Weisberg, who's the project manager and curator of the Downtown Hollywood Mural Project, she leads a tour of the murals that she's curated at 6 o'clock. Both free events. There's a little break in between. We do it every month. If you can't make it this month, you do it next month. But it's a really great event. Nice thing to come out for the family. So many great things in Hollywood. Dream Car Classic Car Show every first Sunday of the month. Beautiful time in downtown Hollywood, walking down the boulevard, seeing these blasts from the past. Tons of free concerts at the Arts Park. Just had Caribbean Fest this weekend.
And great food in downtown Hollywood.
Great food.
If you come Friday, Drastix gets you a taste, but there's lots of wonderful places.
Amen. I just had Krakatoa, the Indonesian.
Great place, huh?
Oh my. Where do you find Indonesia?
Bala Krakatoa is my favorite appetizer there, so I love that place, yeah.
And you can find out more about the restaurant offerings on the Parkside Hollywood website. If you ever have any questions, you want to know, is this a good place? Should I check this event out? Don't hesitate to reach out to me. I've spent a lot of time acquiring all this knowledge in my mind that I love to share with people. It doesn't do much good if I keep it inside. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up here?
No, just join us on Friday. It will be, it's a beautiful environment. It'll be an intimate conversation, and I look forward to meeting you.
And I will say, this is probably one of the coolest backdrops that we've ever had. You want to tell them what this was?
Yeah, if you look at the sign Agile New York City, you know, if you know the Agile community, I was giving a talk in 2013, and a fellow named Jim Knuckle, who does graphic recording, while I was speaking, was recording what I was talking about. So literally, this is a visual recording of a talk I gave in 2013 at a conference in New York. And
So cool.
I love having it around.
So cool. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for having me.
My pleasure.
And we hope to see you guys Friday. If you need something to tell your boss, we have many accurate, truthful things. You're gaining insight that you hopefully bring back to your company. There is a networking component. You don't have to network, but you can meet people. So we have some things you can tell your boss if you're worried about missing an hour of work. We understand it isn't.
Are you trying to bribe people? Come on, Evan.
But it happens, you know.
Free coffee.
Free
Isn't
coffee.
that enough?
There you go. But I know sometimes it's tough. You know, people work. They don't know how to tell their boss. You know, hey, listen, you'll be in by 10:30, maybe even earlier. It's okay. But appreciate you tuning in. Love to hear why you choose 954. Don't hesitate to reach out. And we appreciate your time. Hope to see you at some events soon. Cheers.
Bye-bye.